and welcome to Rainy Books with Amanda. Today I'm going to be reviewing Odd Birds by Severo Perez. This is a Lone Star Literary Life book review. So I have mentioned Lone Star Literary Life before, but they are, in case you're new, they are an organization that helps Texas authors just push out their books out into the world through bloggers like myself. And so I did get paid to do this review, but all thoughts and opinions are my own. But do check them out. I'll link their website down below. They are a great resource to everything bookish happening in Texas. So a little bit about our author, Severo Perez. He is an award-winning filmmaker, playwright, and writer. He grew up in working-class West Side San Antonio and graduated from the University of Texas in Austin. For over 45 years, he produced programming for PBS, network and cable television, corporate sponsors, and the educational market. His feature film adaptation of the novel And the Earth Did Not Swallow Him in 1994 by Thomas Riviera won 11 international awards, including 1 for Best Director and 5 for Best Picture. His first novel, Willow Brown and the Challengers in 2012, is a historical fiction based on the real-life African-American aviation pioneer, Willie Beatrice, and Odd Birds is his second novel. So now I'll read the synopsis about Odd Birds and then I'll get into my thoughts. The year is 1961, and just as the struggle for desegregation is gaining steam, 70-year-old Casimo Infante Cano, a Cuban-born artist in need of inspiration, follows his lover to Texas in what is to be a temporary sabbatical from their life in France. Unexpectedly, he finds himself stranded in San Antonio, nearly penniless with little more than the clothes on his back and an extraordinary pocket watch. His mahogany skin, shoulder-length hair, and eccentric attire make him an odd sight in what he has been told is a conservative cultural backwater. Casimo's French and Cuban passports place him under a cloud of suspicion as events elsewhere in the world play out. Algeria is in open revolt against France, freedom riders are being insulted in Mississippi, and the Bay of Pigs debacle is front-page news. The characters, a motley group of student friends, librarians, cafe owners, shopkeepers, laborers, and bank tellers, feel empathy for his impoverished condition, but his unconventional actions and uncompromising ethics often confuse or frustrate them. He creates charming drawings he refuses to sell, rescues a local eatery about to go under, and renovates his rented cabin simply for the pleasure of making a difference. In the process, he never alters the lives of those who thought they were helping him. So a lot to take in. First off, I just want to say this is such a beautiful cover. The cover really stands out to me. There's all these different beautiful, colorful birds, but there's 3 birds on the cover, and I feel like that kind of represents like our main character, Casimo's 3 different heritages, because he is Cuban. He's lived in France for a very long time, and then he moves to San Antonio, Texas. It's a beautiful cover, and I feel like there's some meaning behind this, just a colorful book cover. Then I guess I want to go into the setting. The setting is in San Antonio, and for those of you who don't know, I do live in San Antonio, born and raised. Did leave for a little bit, but came back, and I love the research. Well, I guess our authors lived here, but I love the detail of the settings that the author put in. He talks about the different streets and the different monuments in San Antonio, specifically downtown. And while even though it is set in the 60s, I could clearly see where our author was taking us. I worked downtown San Antonio for the last 3-ish years, and so I'm very familiar with the way of the streets, and so it was really cool to kind of just like see my city represented in this story. And so I hope that when other people read it, they'll get like a glimpse into San Antonio and into our history. I also really loved that I got to learn some more stuff about the city through this story, just like a little bit about like what was downtown, what's still downtown. There's a clock that is talked about well, there's in one point of the story, Casimo, he goes to a jewelry store to kind of like pawn his watch, and in front of the jewelry store is this clock tower. I'll insert a photo, I'm sure I have one somewhere, and that's the one that's talked about in the story. So it's kind of cool to learn like that clock was there from like the 60s and maybe even before that. So it's pretty cool. I just like the details of the setting. I read a lot of different books where it's set in different places, especially like I love Janet Evanovich books. Her Stephanie Plum series takes place in New Jersey, and so there's a lot of details on the settings and the people there, and so just like getting that in this book was really fun, and anyone that's native from San Antonio or has lived here at one point will appreciate the detail that went into this story. Along with the setting, I really love the cultural aspect of this book. And I really love that all the characters and the cultural aspect of this book. Our characters are all from kind of different backgrounds. There's a lot of characters, but I never get confused on the characters. They're all pretty different culturally, physically, and personality-wise as well. Like Casimo, like I said, he's from Cuba, but he lived in France, now he's in San Antonio, and so he has a whole different mindset from Graciela, who is the owner of the little Mexican restaurant in town, and he helps like bring like breakfast tacos to downtown San Antonio. So that was kind of cool to see. But going back to the characters, like they're all pretty different, and then Casimo and Graciela are completely different from Ruthin, which is the librarian, and she's just like all in her own little world, and you really don't like her, but you remember her, and the author makes you feel something towards her. So I think the author just does a really good job at portraying each character's culture, each character's personality, and no two characters feel like the same person. So I just think that the author does a great job at distinguishing our characters, giving them their own life. That makes for a more interesting story, because we are interested, as a reader, we are interested in the lives of these people, and we want to keep reading, whether those characters are good or bad. And so in the story, there's two storylines going on. It's Casimo's main story of him coming here and kind of being abandoned, in a sense. Not really abandoned, I shouldn't say. Like he's lost in San Antonio, he's not from here, and so he's trying to figure out his way back home to France or to Cuba. And then there's another storyline going on, and it is about Ruthin, the librarian, and it's 1961, and everything's kind of changing in the world, and segregation's kind of morphing into more like everyone's together. There is no black and white. And so the library, the downtown library that I actually love to frequent, they're opening their doors to both cultures, and they're also like upping the librarian game. So like all their main librarians have to have like a degree, and so the world's changing. And so you follow like Ruthin, the main librarian, and then 3 new people that are working at the library. So it's interesting storylines. They do intertwine and connect, but I found myself kind of more interested in Casimo's storyline than I really was in the Ruthin librarian storyline. Taking that back a little bit, I was interested in the Ruthin story because I was really hoping like at some point like her morals would change or something would click in her, because she was such an ugly person on the inside and outside. So I was interested in reading her story, but I wasn't super interested in the other 3 people that you meet. It's Richard, Maddie, and Oscar. Their storyline's like interesting. There's a little bit of a love thing going on, but I I just didn't find myself as interested. It was like I read it and I was like, okay, but I was like, okay, I want to go back to like what's happening with Ruth and what's happening with Cosimo, and so I kind of really wanted to get to their storylines more than I was really into like the 3 other people's storylines. That was just me. I mean, I think the author did a great balance of going through these storylines and not making one feel so much longer than the other, more focused than the other. They were really well balanced, but like I said, I just really wasn't too interested in it. But it wasn't like a big part of the story, so it's fine. But overall, I really did enjoy reading this story. I loved reading Cosimo's story and like hearing about his backstory and his love story with Sarah, and just like following him and following his journey to like find himself again and being back on his feet and being stranded in the city. I loved reading about, even though I didn't like her, like I wouldn't like her in real life, like just figuring out Ruthin and her like her ordeal, just kind of like the back basis of the story. Like it's all about like in the back of the story, there's integration going on between races, and so that was cool to see. And then just the whole setting of being in San Antonio, that was awesome, and just learning more about the history and my city. And it was just an interesting story overall. I really loved it, and I can't wait for another one by Severo Perez, because this was a really well written book, and I do give this book a 4.5 star rating because I just really enjoyed it. But yeah, thank you for joining me today for another book review. If you like my content, please like and subscribe. And until next time, happy reading.